stealth jihad. Some of you may recall that we had a forum on this same subject about 18 months or so ago. At that forum, among other things, we went to some length to define what the term jihad means, as it's written in the holy text of Islam and as codified after over 1,300 years of Islamic jurisprudence. And in a nutshell, jihad is a holy war against infidels on behalf of Islam as a religious duty with the ultimate goal of achieving Muslim dominance across the entire globe. By their own words, jihad has been the fundamental ideology behind most of the terrorism attacks that have taken place over the last 30 years or so. And of course, it's the threat of terrorism that has dominated the attention of our national security officials. But in the long run, arguably the more dangerous threat is the more subtle form of jihad, the more insidious form of jihad, sometimes called civilizational jihad, sometimes called stealth jihad, in which the Islamists, under the radar and from within, penetrate each and every one of our governmental and democratic institutions, and exploiting our respect for fairness, human rights, and the hot buttons of political correctness and multiculturalism are working to transition this country into an Islamic state. At our first forum in this subject, the members, a small group of the San Diego chapter of Act for America, talked to us about the penetration of Islamists into our educational system, with particular emphasis on the rewriting of history in our textbooks for our school kids. David Horowitz that afternoon spoke, among other things, about the Saudis funding and supporting the Middle Eastern studies courses in our major universities across the country, obviously controlling the agenda. Today we're here to focus on two things. First, the Muslim Student Association and its work on campus to shape opinion and to win the hearts and minds of our college students to their way of thinking. And second, to the Organization of Islamic Conference and their attempts to shape opinion and to win the hearts and mind of the diplomats and the bureaucrats in the United Nations. Now, this will not be our last. This is our second. This will not be our last forum on stealth jihad. The Islamic penetration of our country is incredibly pervasive, and there's so much to tell. Over time, we hope that we can fit together a mosaic. We don't want you to look at any one of these presentations in isolation. Over time, we hope to create this mosaic to help you to understand the existential threat that Islam is facing, this country faces with Islam. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He's an Army veteran who, after service, worked as a criminal investigator with the U.S. Customs Service, and after that as a criminal investigator for the Department of Drug Enforcement Agency, serving in Los Angeles, Bangkok, Thailand, Milan, Italy, and then back to Pittsburgh. And then wrapping it up at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Since retirement from the DEA in 1998, he has been an adjunct instructor at the University of California, Irvine, where he's had an up-close and personal view of the Muslim Student Association in action. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Gary Fouse.
I'm going to put this water here, but okay. Thank you, Jim. And good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for coming, and it's really an honor to be able to speak before the Tea Party here in Ramona. And I'm especially very pleased to see that one chapter of the Tea Party, with everything else that you have tackled in this country and all the problems that we face, are now starting to get interested in this problem here, which is also a very serious civilizational problem that we face. Just a little background about myself. Jim already told you that I'm a retired DEA agent, and somehow I wound up in academia as a second career. I'm not a professor. I'm just an adjunct part-time teacher at the University of California at Irvine. I teach English as a second language. Our students come from different parts of the world to learn English, and coincidentally, in the last several years, over half of our students are Arabs, mostly from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. They're not the ones I'm going to be speaking about here today, because they're not part of the problem on the university campuses. I don't know where they stand deep in their hearts about the issues. They're sponsored by their agency or their embassies and their consulates, which pay their tuition. And my own suspicion is they have been warned not to get involved with organizations like the Muslim Student Union on the UCI campus. I started teaching at UCI in 1998 when we moved back here to California, where we're originally from. And I got a part-time teaching job there at UCI. And the extension where I teach is kind of tucked off in the corner of the campus. And for the first few years I was there, I wasn't really mingling much on the main part of the campus except to go to the library when I was free. And so I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to what was going on our campus with the Muslim Student Union and all the student agitation. Then one day in 2006, I was coming out of the library one day, and it was in May, and in front of the library, down by the flagpoles, which is an open area on our campus where a lot of these public events are held, there was an event going on which is an annual event that the Muslim Student Union puts on at UCI, which is, for all intents and purposes, a week of anti-Israel bashing. And there was a speaker at the microphone by the name of Abdul Alim Musa, who is a radical imam out of Washington, D.C. He's an activist. He's an ally of the regime in Iran. He's a 9/11 truther. He's a complete radical. He's a African American who converted to Islam while in prison as a result of being a heroin trafficker. To call this man, if you called this man a moderate, he would be insulted, just like Malik Ali, who you saw on the screen. And on this occasion, Musa was telling the audience that Islam was going to take over the United States and that Islam was going to take over the world, but that for you Christians and Jews in the audience, don't worry, we will protect you. And I was very offended at listening to his words, because he's a very fiery speaker. He's a very belligerent man, and he speaks all over the country and makes a lot of outrageous statements about his country. He says America is the worst country in the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when it was all over, and after the Q&A, I finally got up my nerve, and as I was walking off, I yelled out over to him, and I called him an idiot. And to be honest with you, I think I actually also called him an effing idiot. But the back and forth went, and eventually nothing came of it. But it was a result of that incident that I started paying attention to what was going on the campus. And I started attending these events every May and listening to speakers. And then this is where I met Malik Ali, who I've interfaced with many times over the last several years. And Malik Ali, of course, hates Israel, hates America, and also hates Jews. And he doesn't, he doesn't make any bones about it. Malik Ali is a very intelligent man. Former student body president of San Francisco State University, converted to Islam at some point in his life, and now he speaks at all the campuses up and down California. So I decided myself, I said, if people are against Israel, that's fine. I support Israel, but if people have a problem with Israel or want to support the Palestinians, that's one thing. But if they're going to trash my country, then I'm going to respond. And the other thing is, I'm firmly against any idea of attacking Jews as people. Now, why do I care? I grew up in West Los Angeles, and I grew up in a heavily Jewish neighborhood, and the kids I grew up with were Jewish. When I went into the service in the 1960s, I found myself in Germany, and I was stationed just outside Nuremberg, Germany. And if you know anything about the history of the Third Reich, you know that Nuremberg plays a central role with all of its symbolism. It was the site of the Nuremberg Party rallies. The Nuremberg laws were passed there. The Nuremberg war trials. It has a great deal of symbolism. And so ever since I came back into civilian life, I became sort of an amateur scholar of the Third Reich and the Holocaust. And I've been to Auschwitz, and I've been to Dachau and Buchenwald. And to me, anti-Semitism, though I'm not Jewish, I'm a Christian, to me, it strikes me. I have strong feelings about it. And anti-Semitism, ladies and gentlemen, is on the march worldwide. It is making a resurgence. In Europe, the situation is back in the 1930s again. If you're a Jew, you don't walk down the street wearing Jewish garb or a yarmulke, because you'll probably be spit upon, insulted, or attacked, not by the Europeans, but by the young male Muslim immigrants. So I decided to get involved, and I started attending these things, and I also got involved with an organization in Orange County called the Orange County Independent Task Force on Anti-Semitism, which was formed to investigate complaints of anti-Semitism on the campus, where Jewish students were being subjected to intimidation, insults, sometimes minor physical assaults, and were complaining to the university, both at UC Irvine and on the other UC campuses, and nothing was being done about it. All this speech that you heard on the screen before we started today is considered free speech, and it is indeed free speech. I understand that. I've never advocated these people be dragged off and thrown in jail, but we have to respond to it. The fact is, and I hate to say this, but the administration at my school, at the University of California campuses up and down the state, and including the president, the current president of the outgoing president of the University of California, Mark Udoff, have done nothing. They've ignored the complaints. Of course, we have a new president coming into the University of California. Things aren't going to get any better with Janet Napolitano, which is another story. In addition, in fighting this, the Orange County Independent Task Force on Anti-Semitism joined forces with the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, and there was not a lawsuit, but an investigation on complaints of anti-Semitism by students at the University of California at Irvine. And it was a long investigation which basically went nowhere. The eventual findings were that, well, there's been incidents, there's been insults, there's been problems, but it's free speech, it's nothing serious, the complaints have not been timely, religion is not covered under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which surprised me, I didn't know that. Religion is not covered. And it has to be complaints based on nationality, and they couldn't find that any Israeli students had suffered discrimination or were unable to study because of a hostile atmosphere. So it went nowhere. An appeal was filed, and you might have read in the paper just this past week, the final thing was denied, and it's all over. It went to nothing. But things have happened. There have been incidents, not only on the UC campus, but on other UC campuses as well, the UCI campus, other UCI campuses as well. Another problem we had was that the Jewish Federation of Orange County and the local Jewish student chapter, Hillel, which is a national organization to promote Jewish life on campus, did not want to rattle the boat. They didn't want to rock the boat because their existence depends on Jewish students coming to UCI. And if Jewish students decide to go elsewhere because there's a climate of intimidation and anti-Semitism, well, it hurts them too. So they have been an obstacle to everything we have tried to do to bring public awareness, and especially to the Jewish community of Orange County, that there's a problem on campus. And by the way, two points I want to note here. Obviously, I'm not speaking on behalf of the university, okay, even though I'm a part-timer there. And secondly, 99% of the students on our campus have nothing to do with this. They're not anti-Semitic. They're not involved in all the ugliness. Over 50% of the students on our campus are Asian American. And I wish it were 100%, okay? They're great. They're there. Unfortunately, we don't have a big humanities department like Berkeley or UCLA, so that kind of cuts down on the craziness too. Okay, a lot of biology, engineering, pre-med, and things like that. Okay, so things went on, continue to go on. Every year, this event comes to UC Irvine, and I would go and I would watch the things. I would never disrupt. But I would ask questions, critical questions, and challenge the speakers. In 2008, let me give you a couple anecdotes. In 2008, there was a Jewish lady, a young Jewish lady, who was filming there. She comes and films all the events for Stand With Us, which is a pro-Jewish, pro-Israel organization. She videotapes the presentations, which is allowed. They try to stop us from videotaping, but the law is very clear. We have the right to do it. It's a public institution, a public event. We have the right. That night, it was a Malika Lee speech, who you heard here. After the event, she was going across the street to the parking garage with her assistant, and as they got in the car, they were followed by a group of young male MSU members who circled her car, blocked the car, were taking down her license plate, wouldn't let her leave. She called 911. She got the campus police there. At the same time, another lady, unaffiliated with the university, saw it, called 911, got the campus police there. The campus police came and essentially did nothing. The second lady's car was also surrounded. They got on the hood of her car, were trying to write down her VIN number. The police would do nothing. In fact, they later told her that the whole incident was the fault of the camera lady because she had provoked the Muslim students. So that went nowhere. In 2009, British Member of Parliament George Galloway, some of you may have heard of him. He's the one who was an ally of Saddam Hussein, who supposedly was under investigation for getting oil vouchers to support Hussein's regime. He came to speak at UCI on behalf of the MSU. During the Q&A, he called me a liar because I was bringing up instances of pro-Palestinian crowds calling for death to the Jews, go back to the ovens, Hitler was right. And he says, you're a liar, even though these things are readily on videotape. During that event, a collection box was passed around for Galloway's organization called Viva Palestina, which sent boatloads every year to Gaza with supposedly humanitarian supplies, but also money. And a box was passed around for money to be put in the box. That was against university rules because this was not advertised as a fundraiser. A university official was there and witnessed it. Complaints were made. The university investigated. They said, yes, it was against the rules. Yes, the MSU lied about it. They denied it was a fundraiser, but no further action will be taken. Letters were written to the Department of Justice to see if U.S. laws may have been violated. They did nothing. Of course, this is the Eric Holder Justice Department. The Justice Department that I used to work for 25 years and was very proud to work for. But now things have changed. 2009 at San Diego, which you may have already have known, David Horowitz. I'm sorry, I think it was 2011, if I'm not mistaken. David Horowitz came to UC San Diego. A young lady from the Muslim Student Association there was questioning him, and he put the question to her that the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon had called for all Jews to gather in Israel so it would make the job of hunting them down easier. Are you for it or against it? Horowitz asked her. She said, for it. That went nowhere. The lady made a clarification. The university published a thing saying, well, she didn't really mean it that way, and nothing to see here. let's move on. Nothing to go on. But then in 2010, an event happened that changed things in Orange County and at UCI. And that was the appearance of the Israeli ambassador, Michael Oren, to come and speak at UCI. Big event. The Jewish Federation brought in a busload of about 300 people from a local rest home, elderly folks, to come and spend an evening listening to the Israeli ambassador talk. I was there. And just before the event began, the Muslim Student Union came in. And they sat, some on one side, some on the other side, and one person in the middle with his cell phone texting. And we all knew what was going to happen. There was going to be a disruption. And yes, there was a disruption.